In this video, I'm going to show you how we find and maximize the number of verified emails across all of our cold email campaigns using a method called waterfall enrichment. And I'm also going to show you how you can apply it for your own business so that you can find more qualified leads, send more emails, book more sales meetings, and ultimately scale your business with cold email. Waterfall enrichment is definitely one of the most important aspects of the list building process, yet most businesses don't even know what it is, how to do it, or why it's important. And the truth is, we've used this process and we still do every day to send nearly 1 million cold emails every month for our clients. And we've used it to scale our agency past $40,000 a month while helping our clients close millions of dollars in revenue from cold email alone. So as I had mentioned, the process is called waterfall enrichment. So what is waterfall enrichment? Waterfall enrichment is essentially a process that you use during the list building process so that you can cross-check multiple different databases to maximize the number of emails and contacts that you're actually able to use within your lead list. And some of the reasons why this is important is because all different databases like ZoomInfo, Apollo, ListKit, FindEmail, all of these databases are pulling data from different sources. And while you might not be able to find an email address or a valid email address on one platform, that doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't exist. So what waterfall enrichment allows you to do is you get to run your contacts and your lead list through multiple different data sources. And if a valid email address is not found on one data set or data source, it'll check the other one. If it's not found there, it'll check the other one, then the other one. And essentially you are cross-checking as many different list building databases as you want, making sure that you are searching everywhere to make sure that you can find a valid email address for the person that you're trying to reach out to. Now, some of the other reasons why that this is so important is because one, it's going to help you 2 to 3x, if not more, the amount of valid emails that you could use within your cold email campaigns. 2, it essentially cuts your list building time in half, if not by tenfold, because you could essentially, instead of having to manually upload CSV files and spreadsheets to different databases and then having to verify your emails in a different location, you could essentially do it all under one platform. And you just do it with the click of a button. You set it up one time and then it's going to cross-check all those databases. And if you want to take a step further and clean your lead list, verify them, then you could do that as well. And I'll actually show you how to do the verification process within this video. And then lastly, and this part isn't really spoken about too much, but one reason why I love waterfall enrichment is because everybody and their mother typically goes after, the top 2 databases out there like Apollo and ZoomInfo, and they're relying on those 2 data sets for all of their email addresses. One thing that's bad about that is that it's a saturated list and everybody is going to be emailing those same exact people. The other aspect of that is that the contacts that people cannot find email addresses from those are typically available on a different data set. And so if you use this waterfall enrichment process, then you could find those validated email addresses on a different platform. And it's typically untapped data, or at least email addresses that people aren't as likely to find, meaning you're going to be emailing people that aren't getting hit up 1,000 times a day like you might on some of those other platforms. So now that I've mentioned why waterfall enrichment is so important, I want to show you how we can actually do that. I'm going to show you from a platform called clay.com. You might have seen it in some of my other videos, but Clay, essentially one of the best things and one of my favorite attributes of the platform is that it allows you to connect the API of all these different data providers and essentially set up really cool workflows such as waterfall enrichment. So you essentially set up the table, you let it run, and you don't have to do all that manual work on your own. So here's Clay, and I'm going to give you 2 examples here of how you could actually use the waterfall enrichment process. And with this first example, we're going to go ahead and create a list from scratch. So here, if we go to create a new table, I'm just going to say find people. And now this is pulling from LinkedIn, and I'll essentially plug in my query here. And let's just say that I'm going after marketing agencies with 11 to 50 employees. And I want to make sure that I'm going after the founder, owner, CEO. So I'll plug those in. Let's make sure that the attributes are in here. Marketing agency, plug that in. Let's do 11 to 50 employees. And I want to make sure that they are indeed marketing and advertising agencies. All right, so I plug those in. Here we could see I've got the job titles. Let's just plug in the location for United States. And then you could always go ahead and preview. And keep in mind, this is completely free. So I could get a preview of the contacts. I could scrape Sales Navigator and actually get the people contacts without spending any credits, completely free of charge. And here it's going to generate a preview. We could see 593 matching results of CEOs, owners, founders of those marketing agencies. And now let's just limit, I'm going to limit this to say 52 people max per company. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this into a table, and you're going to see all the data that it provides. So import into new table. And I'm just going to do the basic profile. So this is free. Then if I wanted to fully enrich the profile with tons of other details about the person, the business, then you could actually pay a credit and get all of that data, but I don't think you necessarily need it. So here we could see agencies have been pushed into this table here, and I've got their imported profile, the company name, first name, last name, full name, job title, location. Great. So I have everything, but I do not have their email addresses. So super simple here. We're just going to go ahead and add an enrichment, and then we're just going to say find email. And Clay makes it incredible because right here, what you could see on the right side of my screen, that is actually waterfall enrichment before we actually run it. And here we can see a whole bunch of different list building databases such as Find Email, Lead Magic, Prospeo. I've got my API connected for a bunch of these because I already have subscriptions, or if you have a Clay account, you could use Clay credits in order to scrape that data without actually having to subscribe to that platform. So I'm going to go ahead and change up the order here. And essentially, typically you want to go ahead and use the cheapest data providers first because you're going to be spending less credits, less money. And then the more expensive the data provider is, the further down the list it goes. I'm going to change this one up. And so here we could see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different data providers is what we're going to use to see if we could find all the email addresses here. You want to make sure that you are reading off of the full name of the person, their company domain. For Rocket Reach, that's my last data provider. It asks for the social profile, so that's their LinkedIn profile. And then you could use a data validation provider like Zero Bounce. So I'll just go ahead and do this, and that means it's verifying all of my emails after it finds them. Then I could simply just go ahead and click save and run. So I'm just going to do the first 10 rows because it is using up my credits and I'm not actually going to be reaching out to these people here. But here we could see now it's running. If Lead Magic doesn't find the email address, then it's going to go ahead and check Find Email to see if it could find it. If Find Email doesn't have it, it'll go to Detagma, then it'll go to Prospeo, then Drop Contact, then Hunter. And these are all just different list building processes. But essentially what we're doing is we are cross-checking 7 different databases as opposed to just one. And then we're also going and validating the email addresses using Zero Bounce. So then these email addresses are all safe to send to, and they are going to be good to go for my cold email campaigns. And you could just kind of see it running in action. We'll give it another minute here, but essentially, look, if you were to plug in this list, or if you were to plug in a company list into a platform like Apollo, you're very likely to only find like 50 to 60% of the contacts. So then when you're using a platform like this, we could see that I've already found 8 out of 10 of them. Let's see if these data, so then there's 9 out of 10. And then if this one finds it, then we've gotten a 10 out of 10 email enrichment process, essentially helping us, find as many contacts as possible. So here, we got 9 out of 10. But like I had mentioned, as opposed to Apollo, it's a lot better, a lot more data, and it's super quick and easy. I didn't really have to do anything here. So if imagine your list was 5,000 leads and you were able to get 9 out of 10 leads, then that would be 4,500 out of 5,000 contacts that are going to be verified. It's a bang for your buck. So that's example number 1, where you're essentially finding the data within Clay from scratch, and then you're using the waterfall enrichment. Now, the second example that I want to give you is, let's pretend that you use Apollo, and that's going to be your initial point of where you're finding your contacts, and you actually export a list of leads from Apollo. I'll walk through that example with you here, but essentially, sometimes Apollo is going to have the contacts, but it's not going to have the email addresses. And that's exactly what we have here in this table. And so as we could see, here I've got all the data. This is an Apollo lead list. And then we could see the email address column. But then if we scroll on down below, I could see that there were also a bunch of contacts that I could not find the email addresses for. One caveat of Apollo is that even though it says that the emails are verified, 60% of those are actually going to be verified and another 40% of them likely aren't. So what I did is I actually plugged in Million Verifier using a little HTTP request. So essentially what I'm doing is, for any contacts that already have emails from my Apollo lead list, I'm going to go ahead and verify whether or not those contacts are valid or if they're not. And here we could see I got the email results, and we could see, this second one right here is already a bad email, meaning I can't actually send emails to them. We had another one that's down here. And then I created a rule. So if we scroll on down below, we could see none of these had email addresses, so they didn't go through the verification process. But I created a rule with my waterfall enrichment where essentially, if I click on this column, I plugged in that waterfall enrichment process here, and then I plugged in a little rule that essentially said I want the column to only run. I want it to run if it doesn't have an email address from Apollo. I also want the waterfall to enrich if it does have an email address, but the email address was bad and not deliverable. Meaning, I'm just maximizing the data because Apollo found an email address that wasn't valid doesn't mean that other databases are not going to have that valid email address. So here we could see a bad email address that was in Apollo. I ran it through the waterfall enrichment process. Same process here. I found 2 additional emails that Apollo, had I relied on Apollo only, I wouldn't have been able to reach out to. And then in addition to that, these are all the contacts that Apollo did not have to begin with. And now I've run them through the process. And essentially, I have a fat lead list here of all verified email addresses, whereas if I had done Apollo by itself, I would have been limited on the data, and I probably would have wasted about 25, 30, maybe even 40% of the leads here. But there's multiple ways that you can go about doing this. And essentially, the point that I'm trying to get across is if you are not using waterfall enrichment when you're list building for your cold email campaigns, you're probably missing out on anywhere from 25 to 50% of the leads that you could be reaching out to. This was just a brief video, but I do hope that it helps. There's other angles and scenarios and ways that you could go about waterfall enrichment, but this is just one of the simple processes that I wanted to show you that I think will make a night and day difference, especially if you've been relying only on Apollo and you've run out of data and you don't want to continue reaching out to the same people. And then even though waterfall enrichment is an incredibly important process for list building within the cold email sector specifically, you're probably still struggling, scratching your head, trying to figure out, why are my emails landing in spam, or why am I not having the success that I want to be having with cold email? And if that's you, we actually help different B2B SaaSes and different agencies, B2B service companies, book anywhere from 8 to 20 meetings with B2B companies on a monthly basis. We'll do it for you, and we'll actually do the whole process from A to Z, setting up your accounts, finding your data, writing your scripts, sending out the emails, objection handling, all the way to booking those appointments on your calendar. We'll do it completely from A to Z. We'll do a damn good job, and we'll apply all these different tactics for you. And by the way, if you enjoy my YouTube videos and you want to see this next video, then just stick around, and I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you there, guys. Thanks.